Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
Located at 109 Wall Boulevard in Gretna, Uniforms by Logo Express provides school uniforms, medical wear, hospitality wear, safety and industrial wear, and so much more. We offer a number of locations on both sides of the river. 2 in Chantilly, 1 in Woodmere, and our main store located in Gretna. Uniforms by Logo Express. Your brand starts here.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Primetime Sports with Scott Alexander, and I cannot wait for this show. Hey, I got to tell you, as long as the calendar may say that it's about to be fall, as long as the temperatures here in New Orleans are at 100 degrees just about, I'm going to wear my summer stuff still. Hey, but I can't wait for this show. I've got General Manager for the New Orleans Pelicans, Dell Demps, coming on this show. Lots of Saints talk with ESPN's Mike Triplett, and also we're going to talk LSU, Tulane, and Saints with WGNO's Ed Daniels, who's been on the scene for 40 years. But I got to tell you, it was a big weekend in South Louisiana football. One local team, well, they barely held on for a win, and 2 more let victory slip between their fingers. Hey, one of those, as you're painfully aware, is the New Orleans Saints. The Saints were done in by 2 plays, one late in the first half and a scoreless stalemate. Hey, the Saints attempted a 37-yard field goal by new kicker Will Lutz. It was blocked and then returned 65 yards by Janoris Jenkins for the Giants. A 10-point turnaround on one single play. Hey, but the Saints battled valiantly. Hey, listen, the defense came to play after giving up a ton of points and yards in the last game against the Giants, and even in the first game of the season. Well, they battled hard. 0 offensive touchdowns given up by the Saints, but early in the fourth quarter, Willie Snead tied this game at 10 with the only offensive touchdown in the entire game all afternoon. Hey, last season, this game produced literally 13 TD passes in it. That was an NFL record. And this one, only 1. But the big backbreaker, well, that was the 34-yard pass down the sideline at the end of the game to Victor Cruz. There was only a minute 49 on the clock. Hey, Ken Crawley had some good defense there. But, hey, the wily veteran Cruz just basically stole the ball from him and got the pick, got the play, and got it down to the 2-yard line. And the Giants kneeled 3 times before kicking the game-winning field goal to beat the Saints 16-13. They have a daunting task ahead of them on Monday Night Football. To avoid 0-3, they have to beat their arch-rival Falcons. Hey, the Tulane Green Wave had a golden opportunity to take down a favored Navy team at home in Ullman Stadium. Hey, the Wave had a 14-13 lead late in the game, but they missed a field goal and then gave up a TD and a 2-point conversion to lose this one 21-14. Heartbreaking. Hey, the LSU Tigers, however, saved the weekend, but barely, with a 23-20 win over Mississippi State. Hey, LSU sported some nifty throwback uniforms here, modeled by our guy Leonard Fournette, the Heisman candidate. Well, in this game, they looked like they were going to take this game and roar out and beat them badly. But, hey, listen, it was a 20-0 lead. Quickly, they got 3 touchdowns, 2 by Leonard Fournette. And they had that 23-3 halftime lead, but Les Miles went conservative again, and it looked like LSU might take a 30-6 lead late in the game, but a Fournette fumble gave the Bulldogs new life. They scored 2 quick TDs on a touchdown, onside kick. They got it. They got another touchdown. They even had the ball at the end, but LSU won 23-20. Hey, there was other great college games this weekend. The first weekend, great. Second weekend, you had some not-so-great matchups, but this weekend, well, Louisville was the story of the weekend. The Cardinals shock the world with a 63-20 win over Florida State. Wow. It was 63-10 at one time. Everybody thought that score was a misprint. Hey, the leading Heisman candidate right now, Lamar Jackson, he has 18 touchdowns already. But remember, Heismans are never won in September. Just ask Leonard Fournette and some other guys like Denard Robinson in past. But another game that was huge, Ohio State. My goodness, this one surprised me. They made a statement on the road, whipping Oklahoma in their own backyard. I know Ohio State's great, but that was a tremendous win for Urban Meyer. Hey, and by the way, another great game. The last Alabama coach that Nick Saban had lost, the last team that Alabama coach Nick Saban had lost 2 games to, well, that was Les Miles. Remember that one back in 10 and 11? Well, you know what happened on that third one when they tried to get 3 in a row? It was ugly. Well, you know what? Guess what? Hugh Freeze had beaten him 2 in a row, and it looked like he might make it 3. They were up 3 touchdowns in this game, but they couldn't get it done. Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss lost this one late, and Alabama continues to be undefeated. It's going to be crazy, and I'm going to say this. As far as crazy goes, who would have thought that there's 3 quarterbacks from NC State, the Wolfpack, that are going to be starting this weekend? That guy you probably don't recognize. His name is Jacoby Brissett. He played at North Carolina State recently, and he's replacing Jimmy Garoppolo, who played great and got hurt. There's another, you may know this guy, Russell Wilson, who played at Wisconsin, but then he played 3 years at NC State before that, so he was a big part of their program. And, of course, the guy that's been there for a long time, his name is Phillip Rivers. Hey, like I said, we have a huge show for you. Dell Demps doesn't do many interviews. He's going to be right here on Primetime Sports later. We have Mike Triplett talking All Saints, and then Ed Daniels, a media veteran in this town for almost 4 decades. I can't wait. It's going to be a big show. Primetime Sports coming up next.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's 1 every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
Hey, welcome back, Crescent City. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that open, but this show is going to be much better. I've got Mike Triplett coming up right now, but later in the show, I've also got Ed Daniels coming up next. We're going to talk LSU, Tulane, and the Saints with him. And, hey, Pelicans fans, the season is right around the corner, believe it or not. And guess what? I have a special guest for you, the general manager of the team. You don't see him do interviews very often, but he's going to be right here on Primetime Sports to wrap up our show at the end to talk about the upcoming season and really to get a glimpse on what Dell Demps is all about. I cannot wait for that. But my favorite guest on radio, I made no bones about it. I said it all the time when I was doing that, and now when I'm doing this again on TV, Mike Triplett with ESPN, ESPN.com, and with ESPN because, by the way, Mike, you're getting out there. I mean, I've seen a lot more stand-ups from you. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank
and
you.
Talking about your burgeoning career.
Well, look, ESPN's done a great job, I think, in every market. They've gone local with every NFL team. That's a sign of how big the NFL is, but I think it's been great. I mean, I still cover the team very much like I did when I was writing for the Times-Picayune, but do it for ESPN. So every day it's like they have a finger on the pulse.
I have to ask you because you made me think of something like, back in the day in the early 90s, guys like Jason Stark and, baseball guys that were just writers, and now we know them more as TV guys, even in football.
Yeah.
Sal Palantonio was a little bit the same way. I mean, listen, is this something that you might be interested in seeing where it takes you?
Well, you kind of got to do a little of everything no matter what. So I don't think that I would ever probably, again, for the rest of the years that I cover sports, do just one or the other. When I was at the Picayune, we were doing a lot of TV, and when I'm at ESPN, I'm doing a lot of writing. So you got to be versatile, man.
You got to be versatile. Make yourself indispensable. Be a jack of all trades. Hey, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Iowa native Mike Triplett, he came here to the Crescent City in 2005. He married a Louisiana girl, which probably has a little part in keeping him here. But we're glad he's here. He covered the Saints that first year. I think it was the Katrina year, which was a disaster. By the way, the only time since 1999 that the Saints haven't got double-digit losses. I mean, that was the only year. People forget that. It hasn't been that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about 17, 18 seasons, and
the
you've
bar
only
has
had
been
one.
raised. Yeah.
You only have one just bottom-out season. That's a little explainable. But he was here as part of the Renaissance the next year. The Falcons game is coming up this week. We all know that's a 10-year anniversary to the great Gleason rebirth block punt, and that's coming up. We're going to get into the Giants game in a second, but that was a big, big year for you as a writer. Obviously, a big year for the city of New Orleans.
It's still unbelievable. It's one of those. If you saw the movie or somebody ran the script by you, it's like, well, can we make this thing a little more realistic? You
Exactly.
know?
This is not going to work.
Nobody's going to believe that the Saints, they win all their games and they go the NFC Championship game and Drew Brees is this great quarterback. Oh, and he's coming off this shoulder injury.
Right.
Yeah,
Nobody
come
wanted
on,
him.
rip that up. Let's go with something more believable. But yeah, the season's incredible. Been talking to a lot of people for a big story I'm doing on the 10th anniversary and just rehashing those memories. Some people getting emotional talking about it. It was the greatest moment I've been a part of, and sitting in a press box. Thank goodness it was too. It was an open, back then it was like just the third level right in the center of the field. You're in the stands. The concert before the game, the block punt, emotion, incredible.
I flew in from Atlanta, and not as a Falcons fan, trust me. And I came back home, and and to this day, since 1993, it is the only sporting ticket I've had to pay for. And I did it welcomingly. I was like, because my tickets fell through from the PR people, and I went on the street, and I just snapped up 2 for $300 each. I'm thinking 300. This should be pretty good. 6 rows from the top, and I loved every minute of that night. And by the way, that year the Saints and Falcons came in at 2-0. Neither team's going to be that this season. One is 1-1. The Falcons beat the Raiders on Sunday. The Saints, well, they're hoping to hang on at 0-2. And now we can get in what's been going on. Let's talk. You were up in New York for the Giants game. And it was kind of a reversal of fortune, a tale of two games. Offense was on fire in game one. And then this week, well, the offense kind of had laid an egg, and the defense was spectacular, in my opinion.
I don't know why you have me here because I apparently cannot predict anything that's going to happen in a football game because there's another one I would have thrown out the script and not believed if you told me the Saints-Giants game was going to be 16-13.
13 touchdown passes last year, correct? Yeah. NFL record.
Yeah, 1 this year.
1 total touchdown.
1 total offensive
touchdown, right.
Unbelievable. I still don't know quite how it happened. I do think the Saints' defensive performance was really encouraging. It made you think, well, what have you been waiting for? Why haven't you done that the last 3 years? They weren't perfect. Eli threw for 368 yards, but they made sure they weren't going to get beat by the 75-yard touchdown, the 50-yard touchdown, even the 35-yard touchdown. They made them work for it on their way. And then, look, this could have been worse. I think the Giants probably deserved to score 25 points or so. They throw a interception in the end zone on 4th and 2, or a pass breakup in the end zone on 4th and 2, and then another goal line stand later and settle for 3 points. That could have been more points. End of the game, they settled for the field goal, got down there, could have scored a touchdown. So the Giants got down there plenty of times. It wasn't a perfect performance. But if the defense can play like this all year, if they can keep Julio Jones from single-handedly destroying him, then most times the offense can score enough to win games like that. Pretty stunned that they didn't in this game.
Well, there was a big oh-no moment early. And when you're facing the prolific Giants offense with, I think, 3 great receivers, one certainly great and 2 in the very good category, P.J. Williams going down. And obviously on the heels of Delvin Breaux going down, you saw the knock, unfortunately, on the head. Then he kind of got the double knock with Robertson following up his own teammate. So he was down there. You were at the game. Explain what that was like. It was just an eerie feeling.
Yeah, no, it's tough. That's really tough. I've seen a couple, but not many to that extent. He was down on the field for a long time. It was really somber. They really took a lot of care in strapping him down, took him immediately to a hospital. So it was a frightening one. And to hear the reports that it's, you don't want to say just a concussion, but a concussion and not other things along with it.
No paralyzing. No, you're right.
Is very encouraging. I don't know how long he'll be out, but I'm very glad to hear that it wasn't anything beyond that. But yeah, they have to get up and start playing again. That's a tough moment after they're on the field. And you love the response you saw from players on both teams. So.
The response is what honestly was not just surprising to me, it's almost shocking. I mean, I know, like you said, they didn't play a perfect game on defense, but they came together. Sterling Moore may have had a very low score in the Pro Football Focus scoring this week, but his presence, I thought was huge as the new
He does bring a little
quarterback.
confidence, yeah.
Plays with confidence. He had to go up against ODB, Odell Beckham Jr., ODJ, I guess, OBJ. But the fact is, he played well. And then Craig Robertson, your guy Cam Jordan, I know you love him, and some other guys, Paul Kruger. I thought this team really played well.
Yeah, they did get a decent amount of pressure on Eli. He was skittering out of the pocket every once in a while. That was good to see. 3 forced fumbles.
I mean, it's shocking.
How do you
Once
lose
again,
a game with 3
shocking.
forced fumbles?
I mean,
But hey, look, the turnover was even bigger for the Giants because there's got not a turnover, but a blocked field goal gets returned for a touchdown. So, look, yeah, it's all encouraging. We didn't see a world-beating defense out there, but we saw a respectable one. And if we had just seen that any time in the last 2+ years, the Saints would have a lot more wins.
All right, now honesty comes out, and we talked off camera. What's the reality of this team?
Well, this is what we were saying off camera. I think they're becoming, I don't know if irrelevant's the right word, but I think the enthusiasm is kind of 0-2 really takes a lot of wind out of the fan sails. I think they got to win this game on a Monday night at home. It's a must-win game for a number of reasons, but boy, you want to see signs that this team is going to be more than just win-loss, 7-9. And to lose those 2 games that they had a chance to win, I think is going to really hurt. There are signs of encouragement, though. The offense played better in Week 1 than anyone expected.
Right.
They were starting to worry about this offensive
Really
line.
looked.
Yeah.
Eyeball test was fantastic.
Offensive line is not as big a concern as it looked like in the preseason. So the offense is going to continue to be what it's been. And those young receivers, they've just totally restocked the cupboard there. This offense is still top 5 passing offense in the league, no doubt about it. The defense, gosh, you hate to lose your top 2 cornerbacks to injuries in the first 2 weeks.
And then your next 2 really before that. You could
exactly.
go with Kyle Wilson, maybe your top 5, really.
Yeah, exactly. So, so defense is going to be a work in progress, but the resilience was encouraging. I think they like the makeup. I think they like the guys they're building with. They could still use a little more talent. They could use a little less dead money. So, they haven't built a perfect defense yet. Maybe they have an arrow pointing up if you're comparing it to the last 2 7-9 seasons, but for the most part, it's sort of an equal sign.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Everybody loves that 0-2. Only 12% gets to the playoffs, 0-2. We get that. I would have really believed that the last 2 years. I mean, right now you're still 1 game out of first place. Thank God Carolina's at least got 1 loss, and they look to be a really good team again. But the bigger thing to me is just to get to 9-7, you have to be 9-5 the rest of the season. That's when you look at the schedule.
That's why that 0-2 stat is so daunting, and it should be. I would say 10 wins is probably required to get to the playoffs, maybe. So yeah, you got to go 8-4 now, or you got to go 10-4. 10-4 now.
10-4 looks a little rough.
That's hard.
Right
That's
now.
hard. So this team, from this point forward, can they be above 500? Maybe, but can they be 10-4? That's tough.
I hate to take the win because I'm Mr. Optimism. Everybody knows me as half glass full, but when you look at it honestly,
I think they can win the next 2, though. I think they can beat Atlanta at home, and then Drew Brees will be riding into San Diego. So, if they're back to 2-2 going into a bye week, I think the bye week is in Week 5.
It is.
Then they've weathered the storm a little bit. The schedule gets tougher, but that's not what the Saints are. The Saints are not. Throw the schedule out the window with the Saints. They can beat anybody, and they can lose to anybody.
I don't even look anymore. I swear I don't. I don't look at it anymore because of that same reason.
They lose at home to the Titans. They win at Carolina. You just never know. That's it.
But as far as the Saints team this past weekend, the 2 big back-breaking plays. Okay, you have a scoreless game, which is shocking to most everybody. And then late in the first half, you have the blocked field goal for the touchdown. People are talking a couple different things. Obviously, you were at the press conference. Sean Payton brought up, the offensive line, Armstead and Streif. Armstead, Pete. Excuse me. And then let's talk about Will Lutz not getting much trajectory on his kicks.
Yeah, I looked at the replay of that a few times. I don't know that was the case, and I don't think it mattered. That guy practically took it off took it out of Thomas Morstead's hands.
Right.
He was so
Thank
far
you very
in the
much.
backfield.
All right.
And Peyton definitely threw the blockers under the bus on that one, while defending Lutz. So here's the thing about Will Lutz. He's going to be okay, and he's probably going to make 75% of his kicks this year. If they kept Kai Forbath, he'd probably make 75% of his kicks this year. If they'd kept Zach Hocker, he'd probably make 75%
Lutz
of his
just gives
kicks
you
this
a
year.
chance at maybe a 55-yarder.
And maybe Lutz has a future. Maybe if they invest in him and this is the year that he takes his knocks, maybe next year. He's sort of a poised veteran who's gone through it. I don't know. that'd be the longest shelf life of a kicker we've seen in a long time. But maybe they're investing in a young guy. I know everybody wishes they had signed Cairo Santos. After he came out undrafted. Maybe this is their
They don't like
version of
local
that,
players,
but,
apparently.
yeah, well, nobody else drafted Cairo Santos either. Yeah, he looks like a pretty good one.
He's doing well. Hey, going forward, though, but the other back-breaking play, and I know Ken Crawley was getting damaged locally in Twitter at least. I thought the guy played the ball good. I just think a wily veteran took the ball out of his hands. There it is.
Victor Cruz with the interception.
I mean, Victor Cruz is A, stronger, B, been in the league longer, and C, he was not going to let that get. He wanted the salsa dance, and he didn't get a chance to get in the end zone.
No,
but he got pretty close.
I don't blame Cruz on that play, not one bit. Yeah, or I mean, I don't blame Crawley on that play.
Yeah, but what do you think is the future on these cornerbacks? Though they're going to get beat up. Matt Ryan's looking at them.
They're going to get beat up. Look, I mean, be prepared for it. So this is the perfect game, what we saw. They gave up 368 passing yards, but nothing in the end zone, and got a couple of takeaways. 2 of them were forced by defensive backs, and they played bend up but don't break. You can't expect better than this. You can't expect Matt Ryan to only throw for 200 in this game and Julio Jones to only catch for 50. No, Julio Jones will probably get over 100 yards in this game, and Matt Ryan will probably get 300 yards in this game. But you can win if you prevent the big play and keep a gate on the end zone. And
by the way, you are immersed now in this rivalry that I grew up with. I mean, I grew up going to every Saints-Falcons game. I think I may have missed 10 of the 50, honestly, in my life. So this is a big one no matter what. So I'm looking forward to it. Say, hey, by the way, you know the tradition. You signed the old ball your previous time, but I'm going to get you on the new one because I got to get Mike's going to be like the star of ESPN one day. I want to have that thing right there. So thank you once again. I got a different gift certificate for you. I've got another restaurant for you to try out. I know you went. This one's uptown. The other one you went to was, I believe, in Metairie. But enjoy it with your wife.
I sure will.
And thank you. And you did a good job marrying a Louisiana girl.
Thanks a lot.
All right, man. Appreciate you. Mike Triplett, you know who he is. Check him out on ESPN.com. All you got to do is hit ESPN, then you hit NFL, then you hit Saints, and then every article there is by this man right here, and he does a fabulous job of it, also doing stand-ups for ESPN Sports Center, etc. Hey, coming back, well, we're going to have a big show for you. I already told you, Ed Daniels is coming up next. We're going to talk LSU and Tulane, and don't forget, we're going to wrap it up with Dell Demps. It's going to be a nice look into his life and what he's all about, and then what he's been doing with the Pelicans for the half dozen years he's been here. So looking forward to that. You're watching Primetime Sports. Stay tuned.
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back, Crescent City, and I've been waiting for this next guest for a while, but I want to thank my previous guest, Mike Triplett, obviously with ESPN.com, talking all Saints, and my next guest is going to be Dell Demps with, obviously, the general manager of the New Orleans Pelicans. That season gets underway in about a month and a half, but guess what? Practice is only about a week away, and Media Day is this week, so I can't wait to have him on. But my next guest, hey, listen, almost 4 decades in this business, although you can't believe it by his face. A guy that's been with WGNO for many, many years. He is the sports director there, and he is also the host, the producer, and the creator of one of my favorite shows here in the Crescent City, and that is Friday Night Football, every Friday night at midnight. And that is a show, if you like high school sports, you have to watch that or DVR it. But hey, here he is, Ed Daniels. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. How are you?
Can't believe it's been 6 months since I've been on, and you haven't been on, but welcome.
My pleasure.
All right, I got to get back. I've had Ro Brown on recently. I had Kenny Trahan on a couple weeks ago. Your name came up in both these interviews because you guys are part of a group that seemed to have been together, at least started together at Loyola about 4 decades ago. And
class of '79, Scott, I believe. Kenny and I went to Rummel together.
Right.
So, we had known each other for a long time. So going to college was just an extension for us. But then we ran into a few other people there, and we have a lot of people who are in the business still who are from that Loyola class.
Yeah, who are some of the other guys?
Well, I haven't spoken to them recently, but I think Lee Polichuk, who was from our class, is the news director at WBRZ in Baton Rouge now.
Okay.
And Mark Phillips, I think, is a reporter who works with Lee up there. I don't know. They're just all over the place. You know, we had quite a few people from that class, 79, graduated spring of '79. We had a lot of people from that class that went on to have long careers in broadcasting, and many of them still are in broadcasting.
I've known a number of this group from, local media here in New Orleans and Baton Rouge, just through, different shows I had done before I became an agent. And Ed is the guy I knew the longest. I've known him literally since 1993, a couple of years after he started that Friday Night Football show. He would always send me footage because we would bring in guys like Peyton Manning and Josh Booty and the greatest players from that era. So I appreciate that. But hey, I want to get to what's going on here right now in New Orleans. With obviously the local teams, had some interesting games this weekend. I saw you at the LSU game. We'll get to that in a second. But the one everybody's talking about, maybe because it's the most recent, is the Saints. Obviously, they went up to the Giants Stadium. They were 0-1 going into that game. I'm not going to say it's a must-win, but you kind of feel like when teams are 0-2, that 12% number keeps coming up of teams that are 0-2, 12% chance to go to the playoffs. Going into the game, what were your thoughts about it? What were you hoping to get out of it? And tell me if you were surprised in any way.
Well, I thought the Saints had the right game plan. I thought they did a great job defensively. They, bleed slowly, don't get beat over the top, which really didn't happen for the most part with Odell Beckham or Victor Cruz or Sterling Shepard. Because the number one thing I think in that game is you had to worry about Eli Manning throwing to those receivers. So the Saints were +3 in turnovers. They got 3 turnovers on defense. The Giants didn't have any. You should win that game. I was reading a stat the other day, I think from 2008 to 2012, when that scenario occurred, and there's the Saints getting the ball out right there, when that scenario occurred.
There it is, yep.
244, 17, and 1. So it's hard to lose a game like that based on the fact that you got all of those turnovers. But of course, the block field goal beat them. Here's the bottom line, and I wrote about this last week for SportsNola.com. One of the things that I think going forward you'll see is that the Saints are a very average NFL team. Therefore, their margin of error is very slim.
Right.
And we saw how slim their margin of error was on Sunday. They had a lot of good things happen to them in the game, but they couldn't win the game. And, Roman Harper said it in the locker room on Monday, the block field goal cost us the game, which is absolutely true. And, a couple of other things, too. They were beaten on protections a few times. They've had a hard time handling the zone blitz.
Right.
And adjusting to that over the first 2 games. And I go back and look at the game every week. And, there's, Drew Brees getting pulled down again. Now, he was only sacked twice, but he was pressured quite a bit.
He got hit a good bit.
He got hit a good bit. And here's the thing, too. Colby Fleener dropped a pass, a long pass deep down that could have been caught for a big gain. Brandon Coleman had an opportunity to make a big play or two, and he didn't. Again, you got to find a way to win these games. So what you have is you have 2 losses by a total of 4 points. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if the Atlanta game came down to the last possession, and you've got to find a way to win it.
Yeah, it's interesting because we know Sean Payton is always so confident. And I noticed, I've been noticing, obviously we were both at training camp, that he has said what you just said. The margin of error for this team is slim to none. And that's not the Sean Payton I remember. He's all these bravado and braggadocio in a way. I'm not in a bad way, but just confident.
Well, if you go back and look, Scott, from 2009 to 2011, in my opinion, the New Orleans Saints had the best operation in football.
No doubt.
And if they hadn't messed up that playoff game at San Francisco, we'd have 2 Super Bowls here instead of 1, because there was no doubt that they were going to beat the Giants in the Superdome the next week.
Yeah.
And that was a huge break for New York not to have to come here and play that game. And, of course, they went to Indianapolis and beat New England. But, the Saints don't have that kind of team anymore. Losing 2 number 2 picks in the bounty scandal, drafting poorly, doing a poor job in free agency. They just don't have a roster right now. I thought before the year they were right around a 7-win team. And, if they don't beat Atlanta on Monday night, they're not going to be a 7-win team.
No. In fact, we know the stat. The 3, I guess it was the 4 times they finished 0-2. Well, they finished the rest of the season 7-7. They were a 500 team, finishing 7-9 for the year. So, they have a chance. Obviously, this feels better than it did the previous 2. But like you said,
but Scott,
they are what they are at 0-2.
That's why, and look, Peyton said the other day, look, it's tough to win on the road in the NFL. And I agree to a point, but I think there were 6 teams in week 2 that won on the road. So we're not talking about impossibility.
Right.
You know, we're not talking about doing something that you know, we're not talking about cliff diving here. I mean, it's possible. So I think Philadelphia won when Philadelphia won last night over Chicago on Monday Night Football. Convincingly, they were the 6th road team to win this week. So, you know, the one that gets me more than the Giants game is the Oakland game. You give up 22 points in the 4th quarter and you lose at home. You can't do that. Simply can't do it.
And by the way, 2 of those 6 road wins were the Saints' division rivals. Obviously, Atlanta won on the road.
Right.
They took the Raiders down, and then Carolina did as well. So those teams are at 1-1. And by the way, the 37-11 regular season record the Saints have, 09-11. I agree. One of the best best running the offensive teams I've ever seen.
They were an extremely talented team. Extremely talented team. They never should have lost to San Francisco. They would have 2 Super Bowls. But look, the thing about it is you've got to have some kind of consistency. And when you look back at some of the things they've done to try to expedite the process of having a team that could be good enough to win another Super Bowl with Drew Brees, and I understand that's what they were trying to do. I think they've made some mistakes.
I got to switch gears to LSU. Everybody wants to know your take on this. First of all, I saw you at the game. You were in the press box. LSU, Mississippi State, you know, LSU's owned this team except for a couple years ago. They came and got snake bit hard by Dak Prescott and them. But going into this game, they had the new uni look. I mean, I'm gonna go light on this again. What'd you think of this look?
I was okay. You know, I'm a gold pants, white jersey guy.
Right.
Gold helmet. You know, all of this other stuff. Whatever.
This guy's old school right here.
No, really. I mean, it's you know, it wasn't as hideous as the combat uniforms they wore for a few years ago against Arkansas, which was atrocious.
Atrocious. I agree.
Just terrible. But, you know, look.
At least this was old school. I mean, they did go back to something they wore for 50 years, 60 years ago.
It looked fine. But you know what? Here's the deal. They've changed quarterbacks. They've settled down on offense. A lot of different guys catching passes. And I never thought Brandon Harris was a fit for this system. And I know everyone thinks that maybe Brandon Harris is not a college quarterback. You know, here's my point. If you go back and look at the Wisconsin game, the good throws that he made were out of the gun, even with blitzers coming at him. He is a shotgun quarterback.
He's a shotgun quarterback, man.
And he's not a pro-style quarterback. Danny Etling fits more what they're doing. Plus, I think Danny Etling, you know, the fact that he was bounced around a little bit, or a lot, at Purdue, you know, has given him a little maturity and a little perspective. So I think he's a little bit better ready for this situation. But I thought one of the telling comments that Etling made, not this week, but last week, is he said, you know, we have a lot better players.
He does.
I have a lot to work with.
Right.
And you know, at Purdue, let's be honest. In the Big Ten, when you're at Purdue and you're a quarterback there, most of the time the other team has better players, and you're running for your life. And that's not the case in Baton Rouge, where he's throwing it to Traven Durrell and Deshaun Smith and Malachi Dupre and handing it to Leonard Fournette. You know, that's a great group there. When you can get to those guys, you know, and you have Posick and Will Clapp, who are definitely going to play in the NFL, and perhaps some others, then all of a sudden you've got a pretty good supporting cast.
I don't like being the guy to put coaches on the hot seat. I refuse to do it. It's not my job to do it. I know others like to talk about it. But Les Miles has a big game this week. Auburn is a tough opponent on the road. I don't care what you say. I watched the entire Clemson game. They play tough, and they're going to be ready this week. What are your thoughts going into this game? Well,
I think LSU's going to win this game. I'll be in Auburn on Saturday, and I think LSU's going to win this game. One of the things that they had up in the football indoor facility yesterday was a couple of signs, and that's all it said was 41-7.
I saw it. Yep.
And
were you there yesterday?
No, I was not. But Robert was there.
Right.
Robert O'Shields, and Robert got all the video, and so I think LSU has a lot of motivation going to Auburn. I think they have a pretty settled deal at quarterback, and I think their defense is pretty good. You know, if you go back and you look for 3.5 quarters against Mississippi State, this is a defense that held Mississippi State to 6 points.
Yes.
Now, collectively as a team, in the fourth quarter, they kind of fell asleep at the wheel a little bit. But
most of the fans weren't there to see it, though.
Yeah, I was. And
I was there as well.
I was like, you know, is this going to be a monumental collapse? Because that's what it would have been. But
it was close, Ed. I mean, it was close.
You know what, though?
Everything that had to happen was happening.
Right.
The fumble.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
I mean, they were about to go up 30-6, weren't they?
They were about to go up 30-6.
Right.
But you know what? The punter saved them. A great punt. And then Arden Key, who's going to be a top 5 pick in the National Football League. league at some
I
point.
love that guy. He can get to the quarterback.
He can get to the quarterback, and he did what he was supposed to do.
But as far as the onside kick, that happened. They put a little scare into him. As far as going forward with this team, I mean, what do you think possibly? Give me a best-case scenario for LSU.
Well, the best-case scenario is that you only have one loss going into the Ole Miss game on October 22nd. That's the best-case scenario. As we see a shot of less there, you get to sing the alma mater a few more times. And let's see.
Can they beat Ole Miss and Alabama? Possible?
Well, I think they can beat Ole Miss.
Right.
You know, I don't know about Alabama. Here's the key against Alabama, and I've said this over and over again. You're not going to line up in the I formation and run the ball at Alabama's front and win the game.
Can't do it.
Okay? It's not 2011. It's not going to happen. But what you can do with an effective quarterback is exploit them in the secondary. And Chad Kelly did it the last 2 years for Ole Miss, and so did Bo Wallace. And the key to beating Alabama is to throw the football on them, especially on early downs. And if LSU can do that, it's all about Danny Etling, all right? And I hate to put it on one player, but I will put it on one player for that game. If he comes out and he throws for 275 or 300 and throws 2 or 3 touchdown passes and doesn't turn it over, I know that's a high bar against a very good defense.
Very high bar.
But if he can do that against that kind of team, then they have a chance to win that game. But you're not going to win that game trying to protect your quarterback from making a mistake, all right, and just trying to grind it out. You can beat Western Kentucky that way. You can't beat Alabama that way.
All right, I'd be remiss not to ask you about Tulane. You went to school right next door at Loyola.
Right.
What do you think of Willie Fritz and what he's building here with the Green Wave?
Well, I think Willie Fritz is a good coach, and I think he's got a good staff. You know, I think the guy has a proven track record, and I think his teams are playing relatively smart. They're doing a good job, but, you know, you can't throw for 22 yards in a college football game and expect to win. And, you know, I think it's going to take some time. But, you know, the one thing he's got to do moving forward is he's enjoying the Curtis Johnson's labors in this regard. They have some good players on defense.
They really do.
But Tanzel Smart's not going to be here next year, and neither is Nico Marley. So I just like any college coach, I think the key is recruiting, and that's what they've got to do.
Perry Nickerson might not be either. I think he's in his 3rd year, isn't he?
He's in his 3rd year, and you know, he's always eligible for the NFL draft as well.
Very, very
But,
good.
you know, at Tulane, here's the deal. Over the years, people ask me why, you know, Tulane fans, why haven't we won? I said it's pretty simple. For the last 50 years, except for some notable exceptions, the other teams had better players. So you got to be able to recruit.
No question.
You've got to be able to bring in good players, and the thing you've got to do is you've got to convince the guy from New Orleans who's not being recruited by LSU that he doesn't have to go to Arizona State, that he can stay here and play college football. And those are the guys you've got to get, and we'll see if they can get them over the next couple of years.
I have a good feeling about the Wave. I don't know what it is. I got a good feeling about the structure I've been seeing. I love CJ as a person, but this guy's got it going. Hey, I got a great gift certificate for you.
Thank you, my friend.
Enjoy this. It's a brand new restaurant. And it's kind of a takeoff of another restaurant the guy owns. But, hey, I'm giving you the new Saints Bowl. Romaliche Brown. Brown.
Can I sign over his signature?
You can sign right over it. No, that's a tradition we have.
I'm going to sign
My
it
Saints
right here.
other ball is filled up. You get the new ball. So I appreciate you so much for coming on, Ed. Likewise to Mike Triplett a little bit earlier. But coming up next, hey, we've got the general manager of the New Orleans Pelicans. Media Day is down the road this Friday, but he's coming up next right here on Primetime Sports.
The mark of Legacy Kitchen is simple. We offer numerous dishes like chicken enchilada soup, prime filet and loaded baked potato, baby back ribs, and so much more. At Legacy Kitchen, we serve American fare, crafted cocktails, and we offer a great selection of wines by the glass. Metairie at Betts and Martin Berman, and in the Warehouse District at Chapatulas and Girard.
I burned for health.
For never being big again.
I burned for my family.
For my 10th high school reunion.
For swimsuit season. I burned for myself.
Orange Theory Fitness. Keep burning.
Crescent City Steakhouse, A true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934. It is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Welcome back, Crescent City. Hey, we've talked a lot of football today. Obviously, LSU, Tulane, and the Saints all had big games last weekend, and even bigger ones coming up this week. I want to thank Mike Triplett from ESPN for joining us, and of course, Ed Daniels, who you just saw. And he's been here for 40 years doing the media and obviously covering the Saints and all the local teams. But next, my favorite sport, which is basketball. And you know what? People forget that the Pelicans are about to start this thing up sooner than you think. They have Media Day coming up on Friday. They're practicing right after that. And believe it or not, there's preseason games just in a couple weeks, and the season starts in about 5-6 weeks from now. And I have the general manager of the team, Dell Demps. He's been here for a half of a decade. Welcome to the show, my man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, let's go back. I want to get to some history of Dell Demps. If people that know my show know I like to kind of get to know the person, even if they're in the media, before I get to things. As far as you, you're a general manager now, but people might not know you were a player for many, many years. You played, high school ball in California. You obviously went on to play for Pacific, the Tigers, who, by the way, Heather Cox is a Pacific grad, and I worked with her.
We actually graduated together.
Did you? She was a great volleyball player, right?
We had many classes together. She's a business major, so we had many classes together.
She's a great sideline reporter, too. I worked with her for several games doing basketball. She's great. But as far as your NBA career, and, obviously, I was a former agent. I know a lot of guys were in the NBA for a little bit, then they go overseas, maybe play in other leagues. These days it's a D League. It used to be the CBA. Kind of talk about your history as a player.
Well, it was interesting. I wasn't highly recruited coming out of high school, and then I ended up going to University of Pacific, which was great, and I played for Bob Thomason. His first year as a Division I coach was my first year as a Division I player. But, we were a small school. We played in the Big West Conference. Our claim to fame was you were in the same conference as UNLV.
About to say, talk the shark, baby.
Yeah.
During that era,
During that era,
right,
yeah,
right.
Where they won the championship. Yeah. And that was our claim to fame. And then, coming out of school, it was really interesting for me. I graduated, and I didn't get drafted.
Right.
And I was a journeyman. I'm the true definition of a journeyman player. I played pro ball for 10 years. And a lot of people say, hey, that sounds great. That must have been fun. But actually, it was tough because, my first year I played over in the Philippines. And then the next year I came back and I finally made it to the NBA. But I think I
Golden State Warriors,
Golden State Warriors, hometown team. I'm there, everything's good. I'm on the
that?
team, and then I get waived, I think, on Christmas Eve. So
they waived one of my players on Christmas Eve too, Anthony Roberson. That must be a tradition.
It was somewhere around there, but but it was part of it. But I had some failures. I hit some bumps in the road, and the good thing was I just kept fighting and persevering, and I think some of those failures made me who I am today because I had some great experiences, being able to play over in Europe. It makes me
talk about some of your stops. I mean, because that's a life experience.
Yeah, I played over in Greece one year, and Scott Skiles, it was his first time being a head coach.
Oh,
he
wow.
was our coach.
That's pretty cool.
Peja Stojakovic was
a young
20-year-old player, and he was about to go to the NBA. And, just playing over there, just some of the friends I met and, guys that even to this day I still keep in contact with that are coaches, general managers, agents. It was just fun. Like I said, every year I played on a different team for 10 years. And it sounds good in theory, but sometimes it's stressful because, you're coming home and in July and August, you don't know where your next paycheck's coming from. And
I imagine at that time, did you have a young wife by that point?
Yeah, and so, but, it makes you strong. It makes you tough. It makes you, you stay hungry.
Right,
and so I wouldn't trade it. Sometimes people say, oh, you didn't, I wasn't a great NBA player. I hung on to a couple teams, had some coffee.
Yeah.
And, I like to think I made some contributions, but in the most part, it made me who I am.
You were in the post-Shaq era for a bit at Orlando, but people know you as a Spur. I mean, I know you played there. You're parts of maybe a season or two. And then you're in the Spurs family. Talk about that whole thing and the genesis of playing there and then kind of continuing your post-career there.
Yeah, it started with Pop. I met Pop when I played for the Warriors, and even before then. And Pop was an assistant coach for the Warriors when I first met him,
right.
and he's great. And then when he became general manager of the Spurs, I was fortunate enough to, you know, he
was
brought
Nelly
me with
the
him.
head coach of?
Nelly was the coach of the Warriors.
Warriors, right? That's what I was talking about.
And Pop was the assistant.
Okay,
and he became
that
general
makes sense.
manager.
Yeah, okay.
And so then I went to San Antonio. He's the general manager at the time. Bob Hill was the head coach.
Bob Hill, right.
And then we always stayed in contact. And after my career ended, I remember I called him up and talked to him, and I actually volunteered, just hanging around, coaching summer league teams, just learning all I could. And that's when I met RC. And I actually knew RC a little bit. Because he was director of player personnel when I played there.
Sure.
And just spending some time with RC and Pop, it was great. It was a great learning experience for me. And then I coached a little bit in the D League, and then when some opportunities came around, I was able to get back to the Spurs and work my way up.
Well, I have a question for you because I think it's interesting because I remember vividly when Popovich took over as coach. It was a little controversial around the league that a general manager basically gave the job to himself. I mean, am I right or wrong on this? Because I think to remember that. Tell me the story.
It looks like it was the right decision.
It worked out well. But still, have you ever seen that before?
Well, it's interesting because, Pop was a coach.
Right.
He coached in college, and then, he was assistant coach in the league, and then he became general manager.
It worked out well.
And then,
nice.
I think, he was general manager and coach for many years, and I think, those experiences all helped him. And like I said, I don't think anyone is second guessing.
What did it mean to be in that franchise? Because it is the benchmark team, and particularly for small markets around all pro sports, not just the NBA.
When I worked there, we worked with some great people, like, Danny Ferry, who's now with us, that's where he and I really met. Sam Presti was there, a number of guys that are general managers around the league, like Dennis Lindsay and Rob Hennigan, and it's just so many people, just from a management side. I think it started with the coaches, but I always felt like I should be paying them.
Wow. All right.
Because I was learning so much, but at the same time, I felt like I was contributing, but I felt like I was learning so much.
Grad school kind of for you, right?
That's what I really thought of it like, because, every day you walked in there, you got some of the best minds, and you're sharing ideas and debates, and it was great. I think Pop and RC have a great system, and they set up an environment for people to grow and learn as well as contribute.
And they think outside the box.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was on a TV show called Countdown to Sign Day Hoops for 10 years, and then I handed it over when I became an agent to Dave Tellep. And all of a sudden, Dave Tellep's like a guy that just knew recruiting, and then he becomes part of their organization.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dave, you're with the Spurs? I mean, they do think outside the box.
Yeah. And so they've had a remarkable success in the league, and I said for me, it was a lot of fun, it was a lot of learning, and I wouldn't trade it.
You came to New Orleans. I want to know your first thoughts when you got to the city. I mean, you became a GM at a relatively young age. I mean, that was a huge deal. But your first thoughts in New Orleans when you got here to then till now?
I'd visited before, but I'd never spent extensive time there.
Right.
And the one thing was the most interesting thing for me was the people, and especially the people from here, and how prideful they are of New Orleans and Louisiana. And people love it here. And I didn't know that before I came here, but now that I'm here, I love it here. I'm immersed into the downtown, the central business district, uptown. Audubon Park is one of my favorite places.
It is my favorite. I mean, I grew up right there and running around that park, biking around it. It is the best, isn't it?
I'm there 4 or 5 days a week right now.
Nice.
They put some new benches out there right now. Sometimes I go out there and just sit on the benches.
Isn't it just great?
Yeah,
when you
I love
got
the park.
1,000 ducks just walk up to you?
Yeah, and the people are so friendly, and they just come talk to you, and I love it.
I love that this group, from you to Alvin Gentry to obviously even Joel Myers, I mean, immerse themselves, and obviously Joel calls the games, but immerse themselves in the city. I was in Atlanta for a long time around sports guys covering things, and everybody lives so far away. But I found that this trend has become, hey, let's get downtown, let's get uptown. Drew Brees lives right there by Audubon Park. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, because, when I first moved here, I lived on the West Bank, and my son, he was going to school over at Newman.
Right.
And so a lot of times, that's a pretty far drive. You come over here and you drop them off, different activities, and you start hanging around. And
New Orleanians think that's like driving to Houston.
Yeah.
West Bank. But in reality, if you live in a place like Atlanta or Dallas,
Texas. I lived in Texas and California, the last 2 places, and 10 miles is nothing.
Exactly.
But here, you know, that's like, whoa, that's a long ways. You know,
All the time,
yeah,
isn't it?
so, but then I fell in love with Uptown, and, you know, we got a place Uptown, and now I said, I just love it.
Hey, I got to talk about you. You mentioned your son at Newman, Riley, and I actually saw him for the first time. I went to a De La Salle game where the head coach, Jim Tillett, coached at De La Salle, and now he's at Newman after being in college for many, many years. A great basketball mind, by the way. But Riley went off for, like, I don't want to exaggerate this, at least 7 threes. It might have been 10, and he couldn't miss. And I was like, does he do this every game? And they're like, well, not every game.
Freshman, that was a big game for him. You know, that's the rivalry right around the corner, and I was at that game, which is great. 'Cause I don't get to go to all of them because sometimes our schedules, you know, conflict. But yeah, that, you know, he's a really good shooter. He works hard. You know, he's my youngest, so he's my baby.
You got 2, right?
I got 3.
You got but 2 boys that play, and then what's the third? Because
my
I know
third's older. His name is Jordan. You know, he
Okay.
played when he was younger, but he doesn't play anymore. He lives out in the San Francisco area.
All right, well, let's talk about Trey real quick because,
Okay.
I mean, Trey, by the way, top 10 scorer in, I think, Northwestern history, over 1,500 points, averaged 16 his senior year, which I believe would have been last year.
Yeah.
Talk about him and what's his future about?
He's actually playing over in Belgium right now.
Oh, wow.
You know, their season is going to start in a couple weeks. You know, he's adjusting. You know, he's married and has his wife and daughter over there, and you know, it's fun to watch because he's kind of taking some of the same steps that I took as a player. And so playing over in Europe, I think, is a great experience. You know, you get to live in a different country, and you know, most of the people there speak French, and so
They do.
He's adjusting, and he's having a good time.
And by the way, you're a great person to ask this about because when I started representing players in '04, I was shocked at how good basketball had become over there because I had spent a little time in France in '92, and it really wasn't that good. I mean, honestly, not good at all. And I saw it 12 years later, and of course now, which is another 12 years, it's blown up.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Little countries are having great basketball.
Yeah, it's amazing, especially like, you know, you see some countries like Serbia and Croatia, even Latvia that are
even Cyprus.
Yeah,
I went to Cyprus.
Yeah, 'cause, like, you know, I played in Greece. I was right next to Cyprus,
Right.
and so you know, the one thing is, you know, obviously football is big over there.
Football,
which is our soccer.
F-U-T-B-O-L.
Yeah, which is our soccer.
Right.
But basketball is growing, and
It's
you know,
huge.
they have all these academies, and they have really good coaching. They do one thing a little different in a lot of situations over in Europe. They separate school and sport. So there's a lot of club teams over there, and they're getting these kids at very young ages, and so they're getting really good coaching from, you know,
really good
12,
coaching.
13 years old, and it's really benefiting.
And you
them.
can tell, like, guys, like, I know it's not Europe, but like Manu Ginobili is like an example I use. The way they use their body overseas, and it's a different way. Fluid is probably the best way to use it.
Yeah, and it's a big football, soccer influence
right,
because, you know,
makes sense.
One of the most ultimate team sports, so the different way of playing. You know, even at a young age, their players play with shot clocks. Which, you know, our high school players, you know, most states in the United States, they don't have a shot clock. You know, most American players don't play the shot clock till they get to college, and so you learn differently over there. And you know, I said most players from the European setting are really comfortable with the ball just because of so many hours of practice they put in daily.
A lot of tragedy happening lately. Not that we won't dig into it, but obviously Monty Williams, I know you're a close friend. His wife passed away. Obviously Bryce DeJean Jones this past summer. Your wife has had cancer, I believe, and I know she's a brilliant woman. I believe she has a law degree from Berkeley. I could be wrong there, but I know she's smart and a great athlete.
From Pacific.
And a great athlete in her own right, correct?
Yeah, well, and so, you know, it's been some tragedies, but, you know, luckily, you know, I'm hoping everything works out for everyone. Obviously, our hearts and prayers are out for everyone, and like I said, it was a tough year at times, but you know, we're moving forward and we're looking ahead.
How do you overcome all the injuries? I mean, listen, I've been your biggest defender. Literally, when I was on ESPN radio, I would hear it nonstop. I said, dude, what would you do if you played with one starter to start the season for 3 weeks? It's like you can't win. I don't care. Give me any NBA team. And I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just giving reasons, but it's there. And talk about that, and then parlay it into your busy summer that you've had with free agents and stuff.
Yeah, you know, it's tough because, you know, when you start off, you know, you come with these plans and you have a 4-year, 3-year, 2-year trajectory, and, you know, you start getting these players, and, you know, and obviously injuries happen, and you hope a lot of times that they're spread out because it's a part of the game. But, you know, we've been unfortunate that, you know, a lot of the injuries hit us at the wrong times and together. But
it's been unreal.
Yeah, you know, in my heart, we'll never really know how good that team was. You know, we won't. But you know, but we're ready to move forward. You know, this summer I think we were able to add some guys, and it's going to be an interesting mix. I think we'll have a different look moving forward. But I think Coach Gentry and his staff, you know, they've done a phenomenal job just from a commitment level this summer. And it really started in the spring of working together with our group, and I say we're just looking forward to the upcoming season.
Weren't you were GM when you tried to get the trade with Chris Paul, right? The trade that got him, and I remember the first trade. It's the one I really liked, and people forget because you had Dragic in the deal, I believe Luis Scola, I think Lamar Odom might have come. It was kind of a, and then they ended up nixing that deal because it was like a 3-person deal with I believe the Suns or Rockets, and then maybe the Lakers. And talk about that, and then having to settle for the one you had, because people forget about that.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of a blur to me at times. I know I think back on it. That was my second year as a GM, and you know, the thing I always said to people was, trades get nixed all the time. You know, like there's so many times, like, you know, even in the last couple of years, you know, you have a trade done, and you know, for some reason, sometimes the coach doesn't want to do the deal, and the general manager does, or the owner doesn't want to do the deal. It was just, at this time, our owner was also the commissioner.
It's a little bizarre. I mean, you had to be honest. I know you can't go out, but be honest. That was a little weird for all of us.
That whole time, you know, the lockout had just ended. You're on a shortened free agency. Camp was starting. You're signing a ton of players. Cloud over your head, you know, with the trade, you know, looming. And, you know, I'll tell you this. I tell people all the time, I love my job. This for me, this is my dream job.
It's a dream job.
It's a part of it.
It's the best.
And if you don't think there's going to be adversity or bumps in the road, then you're in the wrong business. And so I said, I still love my job. And like, there's never a time, you know, I go home and say, I hate this, I don't want to do this anymore. it was never like that. It was just, it's a part of it. Hey, what's next? We got to keep moving forward.
And you know the business. I mean, let's be honest. Everybody eventually is going to move on at some point to another job. You like to think you're there for 30 years, but hey, I see the stuff going on behind the scenes.
Well,
trust me, I know what's going on. And I thank you. We have a nice little gift certificate, a place on Maple Street uptown. You got to check it out. It's a new restaurant.
I just saw it. Yeah, I saw it over there on not too far from Tulane.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a little right next to the Starbucks
right there.
Yeah. I ride my bike by there all the time.
Starbucks plug. I'm not supposed to do that on PBS.
Sorry.
But that's all right. Hey, I know you're not. We don't have a Pelicans ball yet.
Yes.
We will.
Oh, we got to get you one over here.
But you work for this organization. I mean, the Saints and Pelicans are together.
Yeah.
Same family. We're going to get you one right. Gabe Bear and all them filled that one up. Will Clark, etc. So I appreciate you so much, Dell.
We'll go right here.
Yeah, right there. Make it nice and big. Everybody can see it. Dell Demps, the general manager for the New Orleans Pelicans. Hopefully they'll come on and have the year that you've all been waiting for. No injuries, please. Let's get this done. Hey, I want to thank everybody. Mike Triplett. Of course, I also want to thank you know, everybody else that's been on the show today, and of course that is Ed Daniels, and I want to thank my producer Will Hill and everybody in the control room over there, Jay Smooth, and everybody at WLAE. Hey, we'll see you next week. By the way, it's going to be a huge one next week. I've got a couple Saints Hall of Famers. I got Michael Lewis coming in. I've got Tyrone Hughes, and I've got Super Bowl linebacker Scott Shanley. All coming in next week after the Saints-Falcons game, right here on Primetime Sports. See you next week.